Welcome to another episode of Merill Talks, the channel where we discuss everything from stock market to global economics and how world events are affecting your investments. With me, as usual, is Merill Fund Manager Marc El-lazidi. Welcome, Marc.
Hi, welcome everyone.
So, in today's episode, we're looking back at the significant stories that shaped the financial markets in 2023 and considering what 2024 will bring. We'll start by focusing on Europe, a region often overshadowed by the US and its tech industry. I came across an insightful article by you from late 22 titled "Why the US Must Be the Last Domino to Fall." In it, Marc analyzed the German economy as a representation of Europe's economic landscape, highlighting vulnerabilities and predicting economic challenges. Now, as we fast forward, seeing the headlines are dominated by Germany's economic decline, we'll explore whether Marc's predictions have come to pass and if there are any signs of an economic recovery. But just as a disclaimer, the content of this presentation has been prepared for general guidance and information purposes only. Any information provided throughout the presentation does not reflect or constitute any financial, investment, professional advice, or any recommendations. So, Marc, would you like to start?
Yes, happy about this. Yes, definitely it's a challenging year, especially for Europe. And why? Because probably one of the main engine of the European constructions or Europe in general, is Germany. And Germany seems the tired man of the economy. It's not me who said that, it's the Ministry of the German economy who said that. And why? Because it's difficult for Germany at the moment to reinvent themselves in terms of sectors first, because very highly dependent on the automobile sectors. Around 13% of the GDP is concentrated on the automobiles, and we know that it's a challenge for BMW, Porsche, etc. Why? Simply because nowadays Europe, the Euro government is pushing in a direction of full electrical vehicles. And it's a problem because a lot of European manufacturing or companies on the automobile industry, because I'm talking about also the car suppliers, didn't see the move to electrical vehicles and have been not ready for this.
So there's the lack of long-term planning in this, and now it's caught up to them.
Unfortunately, yes, pushing by the European government. So on one side, the European government want to preserve the industry,
yes,
the automobile industry, and on the other side is pushing, and of course, it's opening the door to the Chinese cheap electrical vehicles. So clearly a problem here. It's a problem, I will say, beyond that, because we have also an issue on the supply side. Why? Because Europe has always an issue of where you can have a cheap energy. Germany was trying to solve for many years by imported some gas from Russia, which is not anymore the case.
So they don't have any independent resources.
That's the point.
Of renewable energy.
That's the problem, and this is a major issue for Europe compared to US, and because also for regulation issue, as we know, shale oil, it's not permitted on many European countries. So it's like we don't have this competitive advantage. Clearly it is.
We're seeing the cost of energy, and we're mainly seeing how the demand is the Chinese consumers now.
Correct.
How is that developing?
That's the problem. China is passing a difficult time at the moment. I know recently the Central Bank of China have been cutting the rate to try to reboost the economy. I think they are struggling at the moment, this is for sure. And not so sure they will buy BMW, Mercedes or Porsche at that stage. So they are more like focusing on their own product. Even the Chinese governments try to promote like internal tourism, which could be an issue also. Lucky us, I will say, in the South Zone, we have still a lot of flow of Asian tourists coming back, American tourists. So post-COVID, the hospitality industry is still booming here in the South, and I think it's a fantastic catalyst. But the country are based more in the North, which Germany, it's a beautiful country, but it's not a touristic country compared to France, for example. So it relied too much on these industrial, I will say, landscape, and this is clearly an issue.
So we were talking about the cost of energy. That is the supply, and we're seeing the demand. And you mentioned that China's struggling with this demand. Can you elaborate further, please?
Yes. The Chinese consumer is struggling at the moment because they are passing a difficult real estate crisis. As we know, not a long time ago, a few weeks ago, Evergrande, one of the biggest developers of China, went into liquidations.
Okay.
And creating like a stress for the Central Bank of Republic of China to have some strict measure in the way into cutting the rate in emergency. So the situation is not so good there. Also, there is still some geopolitical tensions, as we know, between, I will say, US and China. And if you remember back at that time, when Merkel was in the power, not a long time ago, she was trying to temper the relations, having a good relationship when Macron also said that he's trying to have a good relationship with China when US is pushing in another directions.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this has been exasperated with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia.
Definitely. I mean, it was not helping here. And obviously, lot of challenge. We have already a lot of challenge here in Europe, but we have even more challenge with the war not far because it's just at our border. I mean, when you are living in US, I mean, it's like a distance noise. But for us as European, it's not so far away. It's just at our door. And I think, again, there is a problem of cohesion because, as we know, some governments have, in a way, like want to support the effort, the funding, etc., when the other one, they want to stop about this. And even in Germany, there is a lot of fight on that side because the far left just say that they want to gain more tractions, and they say they have to stop, the German has to stop the funding on Ukrainian war. So Ukrainian war was creating, like COVID also at that time, the crack on the European cohesion here.
So far, we've touched upon how the main themes that you've mentioned are being affected in relation to the car industry, and now we've also mentioned the real estate industry. And
yes, the real estate in China.
And now we're seeing that, and since we've mentioned the war, specifically how Russia invaded Ukraine, but I'm sure you've also mentioned that with renewable energy, there is an issue with Germany since they used to make use of Russian gas.
Correct. They haven't been prepared on that side, and unfortunately, now Norway is an option.
Okay.
But it's not enough.
So they're just getting by.
Yes, it's getting very bad because Germany, as we know, banned the nuclear power.
Yes.
The alternative to the nuclear power, because as we know, back at that time, Merkel was managing a coalition government with the Green on this, and they have been pushing in directions to stop completely the nuclear, which was, I will say, maybe a wise decision, but in a short term, creating like a lot of pressure. And I will say Germany was looking for alternative, and lignite is the alternative, but it's a very highly polluted alternative, I will say, because it's similar to let's go back to the coal.
Okay.
So we are. Funny enough, we are like, okay, let's back to the 19th century. Now we are living in the 21st century. This could be an issue. And I think it's an ongoing problem of Europe sometimes to have some contradictions in this area. And that's the things, how to protect your industry, and especially your car industry, when cheap cars are coming from China.
Okay. So earlier you touched upon the car manufacturing industry. Could you talk further about Volkswagen challenges?
I mean, Volkswagen challenging, it's like I say, a major issue here. Why? Simply because having an issue to not seeing coming the electrical vehicle transitions, and simply because nowadays an electrical car, it's, I will say, I always call it a software on wheels. When combustion engines car, it's like a very delicate mechanism on the road, and delicate mechanism need like a lot of maintenance. When an electrical car, I would say not so much. So obviously when all your economy was focused on creating things, and I can speak about this, it's like a Swiss watch. I mean, a lot of people love the Swiss watch because it's like a complicated mechanism here. you have a demand, but if you don't have anymore the demand because everyone's want, like I say, an Apple Watch or a smartwatch, it's a challenge for you.
And we're seeing this even though they made great efforts recently by unveiling the strategy in 2009 of having the leading electrical vehicle manufacturing by 2030. So we're still seeing the influence, so to speak.
Yes, they try, but don't forget, industrial projects take a lot of time. And that's the problem. That's the problem because now and that's why we are living in the world now, the tech are the dominance, especially on the stock market side, because they can navigate very quickly and to adapt clearly on that side. When you have an industrial manufacturing, it's more difficult to adapt on the project. And that's the point. So you have multiple challenger. Volkswagen was a dominant player and a little bit, I will say, arrogant for many years. And now there is a lot of new challengers coming, new startup trying to challenge the big giants. But these big giants, which is Volkswagen, is not anymore in positions because also people maybe are not anymore interested to have a Volkswagen. They want more like a fashionable things. And in my opinion, car is becoming more fashionable than ever. You can change your car overnight and say, okay, I want this car, maybe not this one, which was not the way of consuming 5 or even 10 years ago.
And it goes hand in hand, even with fuel prices in that situation as well. If we had to consider, however, historically, this wasn't their first downturn, especially when the whole incident with the diesel situation had happened. Could you go further into that?
Yes, 2015, again, they have been very arrogant. Again, diesel engines was something not very dominant in the US market, and that's why they try to push this in these directions. As we know, Mr. Diesel was a German engineer, and they try to promote it and they try to push on that side. I think it's very interesting because for Volkswagen, US was always something, a revival. Why? Because after the Second World War, Volkswagen was really in very bad conditions, and they push in the direction of US by promoting the Beatles. Not like in the way, let's buy a car, but for the Americans it was like, let's have a small second or third car. So they've been positioning themselves. So US market was quite an important market. They always try to impose the diesel. I think diesel, of course, it's in Europe, it's a dominant player, but not in US. So clearly Volkswagen was clearly missing these things, pushing the diesel when people in US want more like a V6 gasoline engine. Now they try to push the diesel probably on the other country, but it's out of fashion. That's clearly, it's a technology shift here. Even people prefer like small engine, small gasoline engines than a diesel.
So let's start talking about a more recent topic that has been going on the rise on the mainstream media and most probably in your world as well. Let's talk about AI and what are the expectations that we have seen?
Like I say, it's fantastic. AI is doing like a fantastic job. And semiconductors are this new fuel of this technology. And I think everyone is very excited, and we are excited. I think it will reshape completely the world. It's already reshaping the things, the way we perceive the things. We can accelerate, and I think we are in the situation of like we are not so far away to find, for example, in the pharma side, molecules and etc. So we can see a lot of positive things, and I think here some people are scared about AI, but I think it's more here to help us to achieve like something we couldn't achieve in 10 years or 20 years. Now the gap on that side, we shouldn't be like so long. It shouldn't be a decade. It could be maybe 1 year and even less, 6 months. So we are like really going in the right directions. Obviously, there is dominant player in this area, which is NVIDIA and Microsoft. Clearly, they are the dominant player, and all the market is really hot on these two stocks. It seems they are going to the moon.
The main theme that COVID-19
Yes.
had was uncertainty, and we seem to have still carried this theme of uncertainty to this day, and it's touching upon the financial markets and the uncertain economic developments for this year. But that's all we have for today. Thank you for looking into this video. Kindly keep in mind that this video is only for educational purposes and should not be taken as financial or professional advice.